Ka tū mato nei ngā tamariki a tāne, ki te whenua kura ōnuku. Tāria te wā, ka tau mai ariha, a ki rea rea. He aha e nei momo.
Kia ora. Our scientist today is Dr. Michael Bartlett, who works in the pathogen ecology and control team. Michael researches a disease called myrtle rust and its impacts on native trees. Michael, are Indigenous trees currently at risk?
Yes, so Indigenous trees and forests in New Zealand are at risk from a number of different threats. So these range from things like climate change through to invasive species. So that can include things like mammals, so like rats and possums, for example, invasive insects. You have pathogens like fungi and bacteria and viruses that can come in and threaten our trees. Sometimes these things are quite complicated and they can interact with each other. So for example, climate change can increase the areas in which some invasive species can thrive, help them spread to new places. You know, it's important to remember though that pathogens are a part of a natural ecosystem. So we have lots of native pathogens here that don't cause major damage on our Indigenous trees that are present here in New Zealand. But when you take a pathogen out of its natural range and move it somewhere new, then it can become problematic and cause lots of damage.
So how do trees become sick?
Trees become sick in a way that's kind of similar to us, really. Diseases in trees are caused by microorganisms, things like bacteria and fungi and viruses, and they develop symptoms of a sickness, just like we do when we get a cold, for example. They might lose their leaves, they might wilt, you might see reduced levels of growth. Sometimes you get resin bleeding out of the trees, for example. These are all different things that can happen when a pathogen attacks a tree. And sometimes those pathogens are very specific and they only cause disease on one type of tree, and sometimes they're quite generalised and they'll cause disease on lots of different types of trees.
So what is myrtle rust and what do we know about it?
So myrtle rust is a disease caused by a fungus called Ostropyxenia sidii, and that fungus is exotic, so it's originally from South America. It's a fungus that affects plants in the myrtle family. So there are thousands of myrtle species worldwide, but here in New Zealand we have about 30 or 27 native myrtles. Those include plants like pohutakawa, manuka, kanuka, ramarama and rohutu. The fungus affects the new growth on those trees, so it infects the growing leaves and new shoots, and it also can affect flowers and flower buds and fruits. And it causes those parts of the plant to die off if the infection is severe.
Can plants recover from myrtle rust?
Yes, they can. So it depends on a few different things. Different myrtle plants are affected to different degrees by the pathogen. So some of them are more susceptible than others. Infection that's less severe will just cause sort of minor damage to the leaves and they can continue growing. And where that infection is severe and causes dieback, it takes repeated rounds of infection and loss of leaves and stems for the pathogen to kill a tree.
Are there any solutions to myrtle rust?
So unfortunately there's no easy solution for myrtle rust. There's no one thing that we can do to fix the problem. The pathogen can't be eradicated from New Zealand. There's no way that we'll be able to get rid of myrtle rust from Aotearoa. So we need to look at how we can manage the disease and its impact on our trees here. So one of the things that we've been doing at Scioning is monitoring the disease through the season. So we're looking at the impact of the disease over time and on the trees. And through that monitoring work, we've been able to identify which species are most impacted. We've also just observed some natural enemies that are already present in New Zealand. So that includes a fly larvae that eats the rust spores. It's called Mycodiplosis constrictor. And there are some other fungi as well that will grow on the rust and kill the spores. In addition to natural enemies, we're also really interested in resistance in the trees, trying to find trees that have some sort of natural resistance and can fight off the infection from myrtle rust. and looking at how we might be able to breed that resistance and put it back out into the populations to protect the trees.
Ki te kore ngā pūtake e mākungia, e kore te rākau e tipu. Tihei, mōri ora.